Welcome to the Intuitive Websites Internet Marketing Podcast, bringing you the country's top podcast on the subject of internet marketing. I'm your host, Glenn Thayer, and today I have with me the CEO of Intuitive Websites, Thomas Young, and web marketing specialist, Dennis McCarthy. Gentlemen, thanks for being here with us today. And
it's a pleasure.
We're going to talk about selling real estate on the web, and I think we're going to really talk about designing those websites. And I've seen some real estate websites that are really great, that are fantastic, have great material, they look good, easy to navigate, and I've seen some that, well, they suck. So I guess if we're gonna start with what would be some of the basics here, we know that there's things that apply to all websites, especially the real estate market. So let's dive in.
Absolutely. Well, Dennis and I have done a lot of work with real estate websites, and it wasn't necessarily a target that we went after. It wasn't a market we went after, but it kind of fell in our laps as we started doing web marketing work. And I think the reason that we've done so much work in real estate websites is because it's such a competitive area. But what we've realized is by working with real estate websites, the fundamentals really apply to all websites. But in some ways, they're magnified in the real estate area because everything's so straightforward. You know, it's pretty clear what you're trying to accomplish on a real estate website. And really the bottom line here is that these fundamentals apply to all websites. But I think you can actually learn some insights by talking about real estate sites.
Now, when you started you were mentioning that a lot of the real estate sites just kind of dropped in your lap. Was that more for search engine optimization, or was it for actual site builds? What was it specifically that when you started?
Well, the bottom line with real estate websites is people want leads. You know, the real estate markets are full of salespeople, whether they're agents or they work for builders or whatever, and they need leads, and they need to know how to deal with the leads that come off a website, and that's really what we were hired to do. But once you start working on developing leads, you've got to look at design issues, you've got to look at photography and navigation, all the fundamentals of the website.
Yeah, and the answer to that question also is we've got different levels of real estate websites we work with. An agent will have a totally different and somewhat less sophisticated approach than a builder or a land developer.
Or even a broker.
Yeah, or even a broker. So it really depends on the perspective that they're coming from.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point because we've done work for ski resorts, which are basically leasing condos, work for developers, which are trying to sell land to builders and then showcase the builders on their website. And we've done work for home builders and then also for real estate agents.
Well, let's talk about real estate agents. And you mentioned leads. As far as generating leads, that's really the main focus of the websites for any real estate agent. And let's face it, we really have to get inside the head of the buyer to really – a lead is a lead, but it is not a sale and it is not an official conversion.
It's true, and it's so interesting, and I think Dennis would agree with me. When we first meet with these people in the initial meetings, the discussions we have are real technical in nature and so much about what do we put on the site, how do we do it, and that sort of thing. And really people need to step back and realize what an emotional decision it is to buy a house. And how we don't talk about those things. We're not talking about the experience that the buyer has to go through. And that experience has to be showcased on the website. So really that's the starting point, is to get inside the head of this potential buyer. Mm-hmm. And in most cases it's going to be a home buyer or someone who's going to lease or rent a condo or something.
And the most valuable thing for us was doing user testing. So we can see the different ways, for example, that men and women respond to real estate websites. And you can sit around and guess all you want about a website, but until you put actual users in front of it, you don't really know what the reaction is going to be.
Now, how did you do the user testing when you were working on some of the user tests for some of the real estate agents?
We sit them down. We pay them, usually. Typically, if you pay them, you'll get better results. And we talk for 45 minutes, and we ask them to go through a series of tasks, and we ask real pointed questions and try to see if they can succeed or fail on the website and see if they're really getting what they're looking for.
I know we've talked about this a lot as far as user testing in our previous podcasts. How important is user testing?
On a scale of 1 to 10, Tom, what did you say, 12?
Yeah, if you don't do it, you're guessing. If you don't do user testing, you're guessing. And what we found immediately,
there's a rhyme in there somewhere.
Yeah, that's right. It is rhyming. If you don't do it in the real estate markets, then you miss some great opportunities. And what we saw immediately in our initial rounds of user testing, we've done hundreds of hours in this marketplace, is the importance of photography. And I think in the last couple of years, also the importance of video too. And we would say that probably the most important element on a real estate website is the photography.
Not random photographers, though. Photos that are attached to homes and rooms inside of homes. Stock photos or even photos that are, here's all the wonderful places we have, but they're not necessarily attached to a particular home. That just makes people kind of angry.
Well, we always know it's nice to have a pretty website, but a functional website. And you're talking, just so we're clear with all the listeners, when we're talking about photos, we're talking about photos of the real estate that the agent is representing.
Right, and it's especially important that they're pretty in real estate. We've had clients that we started with them, and they had pictures of homes with dirt yards and dumpsters in the yards. And
They're brand new construction homes. So.
And the graphical impression that web users on any website get is instantaneous. You know, they'll get a sense of how quality you are within a second of visiting your website based on your images and your photographs. And if you've got a dumpster in the picture, that's a big problem.
Yeah, and they brand. They do a branding conclusion based on the photos they've seen. And the process is usually this: the developer will say, "We need some photos." Okay, let's get some photos up there. And they grab some photos and throw them up there without a lot of thought about what people are thinking of these photos. And then in user testing, people make complete judgments about the photo they see on the website. And, that room looks too small, or that house looks like it's crowded.
Or they only have 2-car garages.
When
they have tons of homes with 3-car garages. I mean, they just come to these conclusions.
This builder does the laundry upstairs. We're looking for laundry downstairs. So the bottom line with photos and videos is that you have to be very selective in what you put up there and realize that the photos and the videos tell the story of your company, not just the story of the house that you're showcasing.
So if it was new construction, as if the one with the dumpsters and the dirt in the yard, what would be your suggestion as an alternative?
Models.
That's a good question.
Models, existing homes that are already lived in. If you can talk the user into just letting you take a few snapshots. Anything but. With one of our builder relationships, the mantra is no ugly photos.
If they don't have any of those, would it be better to do the artist renderings, like the architectural renderings?
We've seen a letdown when people look at those.
People like pictures.
They like pictures. The thing that I remember users saying in the user testing was, that's a home I could live in. And they would make no connection between where that picture came from, or is that's the exact home they're looking at on the exact address. But they would say, that's a home I could live in, that's a home I could throw a party in, or whatever. Those are the kinds of photos you want to put on the site to represent who you are as a business. And if you don't have the home built yet, then you can list the address and say it's coming soon, photos not available. Mm-hmm. Or you can show photos of a model that match that exact floor plan. But be clear on the site and say, the house is under construction.
And we've seen tons of real estate websites, just agent websites, where the photos are blurry or grainy, and people form an impression based on those things. You think you're getting by and you can sort of see it, but what you're doing is telling people that you represent low quality. And they leave.
Once again, think about the process of how these photos are put on the site. Usually the agent goes out with their little digital camera and does a little point and click.
Or their phone.
Or their phone, whatever. And they're not trained photographers. They certainly don't know about photos on the web. They're just doing it because they feel like they got to get something up there. Well, if you want to have a great website, and this is true on all marketplaces, your photos are going to tell the story. So you got to go beyond that. Have better photos.
Mm-hmm. So you would recommend definitely using a professional photographer if you, as the real estate agent, are not well versed in photography.
Well, you get what you pay for,
or learn.
The return you get back is only as good as the return you put in.
Or learn a little bit something about how to shoot a good photo.
Yeah, take some time. Learn if don't use a maximum zoom. You don't use your highest a pan ratio on the camera or whatever. Learn what you're doing, and don't point and click so everything's in the center of the photo and you have huge headspace.
Don't shoot with the sun right behind the house. That's a real bad idea.
There's some other things when I've been looking at real estate. There's times when, and I think you'll probably agree with me, that I would love to see how the house can be used. Like, here's spaces to entertain. Instead of just, here's the bedroom, here's the bathroom, here's the living room.
Absolutely.
It's like, here's how you can entertain. Here's the back patio. Here's suggested uses on it.
No offense, Glenn, but in our user testing, it was the women who had that reaction. They wanted to be in the home. They wanted to feel what it felt like to be in that home. So I'm not calling you effeminate when I say that, but that
yes, sure.
And the men were more into kind of like, I know this is a generalization. We'll probably get email on this, but the men were more into where is it, how far to the airport, how far to the hiking trails. So the men had a different set of criteria than the women did. And for the women, it was really, I want to feel what it's like to be in this home.
Well, I think we're more logistical on that, though, too. We want to know how far, what's the distances. Women want to have more of an emotional experience with it. And that brings me to video. Are you finding people are doing more video walkthroughs?
Yeah, I think that is going up. I mean, I think that over the last couple of years, video has gotten more important. We did some rounds of user testing where video was present, and the video was ignored. And in fact, it was set to autoplay, so when the site came on, the video started playing, and people just left it playing in the background, but started navigating the site looking for pictures. But I think that's changing now with YouTube and that sort of thing. We recently analyzed a website that we work on, and the video click-throughs were substantial.
I think people do video if it's not a hassle, and video historically has been a hassle because you didn't have a fast enough connection, or there are so many video formats. But now that we're sort of established on, like, Flash video works really well on all browsers, and it streams instantly. Now that technology has moved forward a little bit in terms of the display of video on pretty much any platform, it's gotten much more viable, and I think very, very important to the real estate market.
I would
in
agree
particular.
with that.
Now, what are your recommendations for the people who are designing their own sites, implementing their own sites as far as video? Would it be something where they're going to capture video on their, let's say, their mini DV cam? That's probably how it's going to be, unless they're selling a multi-million-dollar home where they're physically going to have a crew come in.
I know where you're getting at with this, and it video, the quality of video on the web is very poor compared to high definition and things like that.
Right.
But I think that video on the web for real estate, it can be grainy. It can look like YouTube. But what they see needs to be very impressive, even though it's not going to be high quality. And even with the high speed internet, the quality still isn't that great on video.
But I would think, given how competitive things are, it might give you that little edge.
Yeah, if you can get it to stream properly and there's no delays in the streaming.
Would that be a recommendation? Would you recommend that agents that mainly are not so technical, maybe they utilize YouTube to be able to put their listings up?
Absolutely. It's drop dead easy. You put your video up there, it automatically converts it to Flash for you, and it does all the work.
I'd agree with that. And also, if you're going to take video, learn the basics of how to take video. Don't just go out there with the shaky camera and know what you're doing.
Poor lighting, yeah.
Fabulous. Well, let's talk. We talked about it being a competitive market and having the competitive edge. How would agents drive additional traffic to their website, especially in this competitive market, especially where it is right now in the economy?
It's tough for agents. It's really tough for agents. I mean, if you're a builder, it's easier because usually there's not that many builders in town, and you can get found on terms like new home builder or new construction. Agents in cities that are large at all have a real uphill battle. So we definitely recommend that they find a niche, a search engine keyword niche, like in the Colorado Springs market where we are, trying to get found naturally by the search engines for Colorado Springs real estate. When you're just getting started, it's virtually impossible. There are people who've been doing it for 15 years. They've got a huge website. They've got all these links into their website. It's virtually impossible. So what you need to do is find a little pocket that you can get into. Like we discovered with one of our clients that there was a huge amount of interest in this one particular school district in town. So she became the District 20 expert. And we plastered her website with all this District 20 stuff on Colorado Springs. And the matchup between District 20 and homes in Colorado Springs was achievable in terms of the search engine optimization. So the short answer to your question is find your niche in a very competitive marketplace.
So if you are a real estate professional that deals in the military, you might say, your terms might be Colorado Springs military real estate.
Exactly. Or find a smaller community nearby, or the name of a neighborhood. Like there's a community near Colorado Springs called Falcon, which is growing. And there's an opportunity to optimize into Falcon real estate that's much easier than trying to optimize around Colorado Springs real estate or Denver real estate.
So
Absolutely.
Really find the niche market and where you're going to be. And I think that
do your keyword research. You can say I found a great niche, and you go and do the keyword research, and absolutely no one is looking for it. So,
and follow that with pay-per-click. don't leave out pay-per-click. Set up a budget for that. We've seen good results with pay-per-click.
Which is affordable in a niche.
Yeah.
But very unaffordable in a broad thing like real
Yeah, if you
estate.
put real estate Colorado Springs and you were to go after that, you'd be competing with
People who are willing to
thousands and thousands of people.
pay people who are willing to pay $5, $6, $7 for a single set of eyeballs on their website, and who knows if they'll even hang around.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let's look about information on the property. We talked about using videos and pictures to be able to entice the buyer.
Yeah.
What information should be on there as far as the buyers are concerned? Or
Well,
not buyers, but as far as information on the property.
I'm glad you brought that up because you still see this on real estate websites where there's no information about the property and they say, contact us and we'll tell you more. Well, no one's going to contact you. There's just too many other resources people can go to. You've got to put it out there. If you're going to have a piece of property on the web, give them all the information you can. In fact, dazzle them with your information so they contact you. Don't withhold information so that they go somewhere else.
I think a good probably equivalent of that would be on the auto websites. And you have a lot of the auto dealerships for their used inventory, they put the VIN number on anything. And when I remember when I went to buy my car, I looked around, plugged in that VIN number into Carfax, all that information was there. I could make an informed decision and show up to the lot that had the car I wanted. And it was easy.
That's the way of the web. You entice people with information.
It's like an onion. You got to give them that first impression, and it has to be wonderful and beautiful, and instantly say, this is a pro we're working with. And then they need to be able to unpeel the onion to the deeper levels of information as they become more motivated on your content.
And that's really the key to getting conversions. I mean, if you're going to get conversions, it's going to be based on what they saw on the website, impressed them so much that they contacted you. That's really the bottom line, not only with real estate websites, but with all websites.
It's kind of an age-old marketing thing, isn't it, where you have to have a rational reason to like this material and an emotional reason to like this material. And the information allows people to dig in a little deeper.
Well, we end each of our podcasts with an action item. What are the key action items that the listeners should be checking out?
Well, the whole podcast is probably a list of action items, but just to summarize a few, have great photos and great video. But if you have, at least have great photos and have captions that tell a story of the property. Don't withhold information. Tell them as much as you can. Entice them to contact you. Think about your conversion strategy because you might want to be offering things like an analysis of the local marketplace or some information about schools or something like that you can send or email to them. That's good enticement to get information or to get a contact information. Make sure you appeal to women and men. Think through the strategy. If the website's just designed by men, well, you need to get a female's perspective on that as well. And do these things now. This is your opportunity. While the marketplace is in trouble and people are struggling to get leads, this is the time to excel and rise above everybody else.
Well, and that's what they say in all markets, period, is when the times get tough, it's time to not to cut back on your marketing, but to expand your marketing.
That's right.
I'll add a couple of those action items. Do user testing. Just do it. Don't think about it. Just do it. Make sure that you have a conversion strategy, particularly with the real estate website, that's unique because you're competing with a lot of people, and be the one who calls back immediately.
That's right. That's just so true that so many real estate websites they don't take the lead seriously when it comes off the web.
Give them your cell phone number. Give them the instant way to contact you.
Well, fabulous. Well, folks, this has been the Intuitive Websites Internet Marketing Podcast. And for more information and to see all the available podcasts and much more, visit intuitivewebsites.com.